as a newcomer here, especially as an immigrant, you need to have a very specific attitude towards money. Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel, Living in Canada. In today's video, I wanted to talk about what I think is a very important topic, which is how you as a newcomer, as an immigrant here in Canada, can get ahead financially. In general, I saw 3 things that newcomers here in Canada do that really sets them back financially, and I just wanted to talk a bit more about that. So you finally arrived in Canada, perhaps you've just arrived here, or you've already been living here for a couple of years. And now you're thinking, everything in Canada, especially if you're living in Toronto and Vancouver, is so expensive here. I made it this far and I don't just want to survive here, but I want to get ahead financially. Perhaps one day buy a house here, or maybe even start a business. But how can you possibly get ahead financially in an expensive city such as Toronto, where I'm living right now? And by the way, guys, an important note here, by getting ahead financially here, I don't mean becoming a billionaire or earning $10 million in a year or things like that. What I mean by getting ahead financially here is much simpler. I mean simply not living paycheck to paycheck, not getting into tons of debt, and perhaps even starting to invest some money and saving up for retirement. And I'm not saying here that everyone necessarily has to buy a house, although personally I do think that having a house is a good long-term investment. But I do realize that many of you watching here, many of you who have immigrated to Canada, do have these hopes and dreams that one day you do want to have your own house. And at this moment, it might seem impossible to you if you've just arrived here in Canada and you're just earning an average salary of, let's say, $40,000 or $50,000 per year, and you're faced with these huge expenses and inflation with expensive groceries and so on. Or if you're as a student here and you're not earning anything, but instead you have to pay tons of money for tuition fees and for books and so on, you might think that that dream of getting ahead financially and one day owning a house seems impossible. I want to tell you here that that is not the case at all. If you finally arrived here in Canada, it means that you have already overcome many, many difficult challenges. So you are someone, I guess, who is hardworking, who has a particular skill, or who is very knowledgeable in something. What you need is just to have the patience, because it will take a while. You will not become financially stable within, let's say, the first 1 or 2 years here. But more important is that you need to have a certain attitude. As a newcomer here, especially as an immigrant, you need to have a very specific attitude towards money. There's one umbrella term, one thing that you really, really need to avoid, which is lifestyle creep or lifestyle inflation. And you might heard of that term before. So what is lifestyle creep or lifestyle inflation? Lifestyle inflation or lifestyle creep happens when your income goes up. Let's say you arrive here in Canada and at first you only earned $30,000, but after the second year you started earning $45,000 because you got promoted, because you're more skilled now. But instead of saving up the difference or saving up a majority of that difference, let's say an additional $5,000 or so, you increased your lifestyle, you upgraded your lifestyle, you started buying more things and spending a bit more money here and there, and before you know it, you're not saving money, you're not investing money, but on the contrary, you are slowly getting yourself into a bit of debt. So this is something I typically see happening, and honestly it has also kind of happened with myself. So when you first arrive here as a newcomer, as an immigrant, your spending attitude is to just be super frugal. You're really watching your expenses and you're only exclusively shopping at No Frills, and you're only buying things at a discount, and you're only buying your clothes at Value Village. You're really monitoring your expenses in great detail, and you do not want to spend a single cent more than necessary. But after a few years go by, you start getting more comfortable here, your income starts going up, and you start spending a bit more. You start shopping a bit more. You start loosening up your spending a bit, and before you know, your chances at becoming financially stable or getting ahead financially are just out of the window. And before you know it, you have a family and you start having kids, and suddenly your expenses are just through the roof. So what to do about this? It's actually pretty simple, and I'm really sure that you yourself know all the answers already. You're just not doing it. So let me just take the opportunity in this video to point out the main 3 things that will really keep you from getting ahead financially quickly in this new country. And guys, while following along, while going through these 3 things, please do let me know in the comments below which of these mistakes you yourself have made so far. And also, if you think that you're getting value out of this video, if you're enjoying it, then please do let me know by hitting the like button. I would really appreciate that, because that would help to get this video out to more people. Thank you. So, lifestyle creep. The number 1 thing to avoid as a newcomer if you want to get ahead financially here is not to overpay on rent. Okay, I know this will invite a lot of controversy. Your question might be, how in the world can I save on rent? That is not within my control, and rents are just through the roof here in Toronto and in Vancouver. Everything is so expensive. You can't get a 1-bedroom apartment below $2,000 or even $2,200 these days. And yes, you are right. Things have changed in these past few years. When I arrived 5 years ago, you could still get a 1-bedroom apartment for, I would say, around $1,700. That by public transportation is about 20 minutes perhaps away from the core of the city. But nowadays, prices have gone up by a lot, and you cannot get a decent 1-bedroom apartment for under, I think, $2,200. And if you need a 2-bedroom apartment, you can easily pay $2,800 or even $3,000 for that. So what to do then? Everyone obviously has their needs and their preferences. If you're a family of 4, of course, you cannot share a base room apartment with another family. That's like a very extreme example. But what I would encourage you to do when renting an apartment is to use the -1 rule. What's the -1 rule? It means to first figure out what your basic need for housing is. So this is what I mean. Let's say I and my husband, the 2 of us, would ideally need a 1-bedroom apartment. But as newcomers here, 5 years ago when we moved here, we did not get a 1-bedroom apartment, because even at that time, a 1-bedroom apartment that is relatively close to the city would cost us $1,700 or $1,800 per month, plus utilities and plus insurance, and that adds up to almost $2,000. And we totally did not want to do that. We did not want to spend our hard-earned savings that we brought over from Indonesia to Canada to just splurge on rent. And I know splurging is an exaggeration, because living in a 1-bedroom apartment is certainly not really a luxury, but hey, this is Toronto, right? So applying the -1 rule means that instead of going for that 1-bedroom apartment, which would be ideal and perfect for us, which we would totally love living in, we would do -1, which would equal a studio apartment. And if you've watched my video about how it was like living in a studio apartment, which I link up here, by the way, then you will find out that over the course of 2 years, I saved $24,000 just by doing that. So living in that studio apartment, we only paid a rent of $1,180 in the beginning. That was 5 years ago, but currently our rent is still only $1,280. And that is because here in Toronto, there are certain restrictions on how much the rent can increase on a yearly basis. So it increased from about $1,180 to now I think $1,270 or $1,280 by only $100. And because our unit is so small, for hydro we only pay about $40 per month, and for insurance only I think roughly $30, so that's $70. So $1,280 plus $70 is only $1,350. So compare that with living in a 1-bedroom apartment, which would have cost us with utilities and insurance, let's say $2,000 to $2,200. That's almost a $1,000 $10,000 difference that we can instead save and invest. So let's take another example. If you're a family of 3, let's say 2 parents and 1 kid, ideally perhaps you want to live in a 2-bedroom apartment, but I would strongly encourage you in the beginning to apply that -1 rule and instead live in a 1-bedroom apartment. Just somehow make that 1-bedroom apartment work. You can utilize the main room, the living room, and maybe set up a sofa bed there. And I know, of course, it is less comfortable. It is less comfortable to have a smaller space. But believe me, it will be worth the sacrifice because it is not a situation in which you have to live forever. One day, let's say after 5 years, when your income really increases by a lot, then you can slowly increase your living standards. Slowly, of course. And that is, for example, something that we're doing now. So we've been living in the studio here for 5 years now, and we've just managed to make it work within these, I think, 320 square feet. And we've really gotten used to this, living in a very small space, and as a side effect of that, we also tend to accumulate less items. But now, after about 5 years, as our incomes have increased, we are at a stage where we can relatively comfortably afford a mortgage, and that is why right now we are in the process of hunting for a house under $500,000, a condominium I mean. And in fact, I made a series about that, about my process of hunting for a condo here in the GTA for under $500,000, and we're coming to an end in that series. And in case you want to check that out, you can click on the playlist up here. It's really worth it to just sacrifice a bit more in the beginning, sacrifice a bit more of that comfort and that space in the first few years of arriving here in Canada, so that after 5 years or so, you could possibly upgrade to buying your own house. And I know that it is very tempting that once you get to a, let's say, medium range income level of $60,000 per year, let's say, to just start an upgrading to a larger apartment, rent a more expensive apartment, and put all your money in there. But if you want to get financially ahead in the long term, then really do not do that, but instead apply the -1 rule and rent a place that is slightly smaller than what you actually need. Moving on to the second thing, do not buy a car. What? Do not buy a car? I can start seeing those comments down below. People telling me that you need a car because otherwise you would need an hour to get to work or to your university, or because you need that car to shop for stuff, for groceries, or to get your children to school, and so on. I know there are so many reasons for buying a car, but the question is, can you afford it? I mean, if you can afford it easily and it doesn't really impact your financial situation in the long term, then go ahead, then all power to you. But if you cannot really afford it, and if it really stretches your budget, and if it impacts the possibility for you to save and invest into your future, then just don't get a car. Just find other ways to make it work. Instead of living far away from your university or your workplace, find a place that is perhaps much smaller but closer to your workplace, so that you can just take public transportation or even bike there. And I know there are always exceptions, of course. There are always exceptions, situations in which it is just not possible and you just need the car. And if you think that way, then just skip this entire section. Now, before we go on, what does owning a car actually cost you in Toronto? I personally do not own a car. I do not drive here. So let's just check that out online. So this website here, finder.com, perfectly explains how much it costs to own a car here in Canada. And for those of you car owners, please do let me know in the comments below whether or not you think these estimations are accurate or not. This is, of course, just a generalization. The cost of owning a car will depend on many different things, like what the brand of your car is, how new, how old it is, how much you use it, and so on. So let's look at the car expenses. If you're financing your car, your monthly budget might be around $300 something. Fuel, $165, depending on how much you use your car, of course. Maintenance, $190. License and registration, $10. Insurance, $298, but of course can be more. Total monthly car cost almost $1,000 per month. That's a lot of money. So $1,000 per month per year would be $12,000. But always remember, $12,000 that you're paying for your car is not from your gross income, but that is from your net pay. So in order to pay $12,000 for using that car, that means that it would actually take about $18,000 out of your gross pay. This is, of course, just a very rough calculation. And just imagine what you could do instead with that $18,000. You could, for example, put that $18,000 into your RSP account or into your TFSA account. So taking public transportation, is that a realistic solution? Personally, I do think so. I've been living here in Toronto for 5 years and I've only been using public transportation, and I've also biked, especially in the spring and summer and fall, early fall, and I've taken Ubers occasionally, Uber and Lyft. So once in a while when I go out and I come home late at night and I don't want to wait for the bus or it's just too cold to wait, I just take an Uber once or twice a month. But even that would only cost me $25 to $50 per month. And using public transportation, there was a time in the beginning when I just arrived here where I used it on a daily basis because I was working. I mean, now I'm also working, but I'm working from home. But at that time, I was still working outside. So I needed to buy a monthly pass, which cost around $150 something. So even $150, let's just take $150 times 12 months. That is only $1,800. But if you're someone who works from home and you do not need to go to the office a lot, because nowadays many people work hybrid, like my husband, he only needs to go to the office once a week, and then we go out maybe 2 more times per week to do groceries and so on, then you do not even need that monthly pass. So now on average, I only spend approximately $60 to $80 for public transportation per month. And of course, because of that, I needed to adjust my lifestyle to that. And yes, that meant hand carrying my groceries from the store to the bus and then to my unit, and then ordering a lot of Walmart or Sobeys deliveries straight to my door and not going to Costco and shopping there. So of course, you need to consider your particular situation, but really take a step back and consider, do you really need that car, or are there other more cost-efficient ways for you to get around? Perhaps you might move closer to your college, your university, or your workplace, and because of that, you live closer to the city center and you pay, let's say, $500 more in rent per month. But on the other hand, you save yourself those $1,000 that you would otherwise spend on a car. Now, let's go on to the third thing, and this is something that's really insidious, and that is online shopping. Yes, I know that when you arrive here in Canada at first, you will find that it is extremely easy to shop for things online. Of course, if you come from countries like the UK, European countries, or the United States, then that won't be a noticeable difference. Because let's face it, in the US, it's even more easy to get things online. But if you come from a country like Indonesia, for example, over there, we do not have Amazon. I mean, there are other online shops, but there is no Amazon and there's no one-day Prime delivery. I would say that there is a bit less of a temptation to shop on a daily basis. But what's even more alluring in big cities like Toronto and Vancouver here is that you can shop for almost everything that you can imagine. You can get access to all kinds of brands here. And advertisement is in your face all the time. And depending on where you came from, you might notice that here in Toronto, the living standard is higher and people perhaps consume more compared to in your country. And all of that combined can kind of encourage you to start shopping more. You just start signing up for shopping newsletters with different brands, and you get all these offers in your inbox with promotions, coupons, and everything, and you register your credit card, and with an easy click, the item that you ordered will arrive the next day. And if you do that, if you make online shopping or shopping in general a habit here, then before you know it, you can easily spend hundreds or thousands of dollars each month just on shopping, and you can as easy get into consumer debt. And if you once get into debt, it will be super difficult to get out of that. So please remember that after you've lived here in Canada for a while, after you kind of pass through the initial super frugal stage and your income starts going up, do not slip into that shopping stage. Think of your future and make sure that you have clear financial goals for the next 5 to 10 years for you. Because having financial goals, how much you want to save each month, how much you want to invest, and whether or not you want to buy a property someday, those are the only things that can keep you from overspending on shopping. Because if you do not not have those clear financial goals, then why would you bother thinking about limiting your shopping? And I know that some of you might say that, hey, I don't really do any shopping. All I do is buying groceries, but grocery prices have inflated so much. Everything has become so expensive, so it's not really my fault that I can't save. Yeah, and you're right in a way. I've also noticed that groceries have gone up by so much, and in fact, I also made a video about the rise in the cost of groceries, and I'll link that video up here for you. But if we just accept the situation and say that, okay, my income has remained stagnant, but prices have gone up, so there's nothing that I can do, so I will just keep spending the way I'm used to, and I'm not gonna be able to save anything or invest anything, then you're kind of, I don't want to say doomed. You'll not be able to make any progress financially. So the economy, the grocery prices is not something that you can control, but you still have some control over the spending, the brands that you choose, the amount that you consume, the money that you spend. But if you really make that a point, if you have financial goals on one hand, and if you set yourself a budget, a very strict budget that you follow, and you keep on searching for ways for how you can save money and build a lifestyle and build habits that prevent you from overspending, then you will totally be in a position to save some. And it might be a very long process. It might take you years until you can even save up, let's say, for a down payment. But time goes by so fast. I can't tell you how fast these past 5 years have gone by for us. It sounds like a cliche, but really it feels like that in a blink of an eye, these 5 years have passed. And in the first 3-4 years, we've been living rather frugally. I mean, sometimes on occasions we've splurged, but overall we've maintained a budget and we saved money, and doing that has enabled us to save up enough to pay for a down payment for a house that we're hunting for right now. So to sum this up, suffer in the beginning and enjoy later. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. Please let me know what you think in the comments down below. How long have you been living in Canada? Have you fallen prey to lifestyle inflation? Have you overspent on occasions? Or have you been able to set up a budget and also have clear financial goals that you are aiming towards? I would really love to know what your experience has been like, so please do leave them down in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you soon in the next video. Bye.